Congressman Austin Scott of Georgia, who just voted for the 11th time for Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you for having us.
How you feeling? How you holding up? I know this has been 3 days of more of the same, and some potentially long nights ahead.
I'm fine. Look, this is democracy, right? And it's a very narrow margin. And if it had been a narrow margin on the other side, I think you'd be seeing the same type of thing where it took several votes to get the speaker selected. There are negotiations going on. Some of them are honorable negotiations, and others, are not. Some of them, you've got people sending out fundraising letters and other things right now, trying to raise money off of this. And I think that's a shame with the situation as serious it is that someone would use this opportunity to raise money. And I think that the voters should take those people into account, when the next election comes around. But I think we're going to get across the finish line. I think Kevin McCarthy will be the Speaker of the House. I think we'll have a rules package that gives the individual members of the House significantly more influence and power over the legislation that passes than they've had under Pelosi's administration. And the rules, I actually believe, a lot of the Democrats are going to like the rules because it's going to open up the debate and allow them to have more influence on the legislation instead of just walking in and somebody telling you to vote on something that never went through the committee process.
Congressman, you tweeted out comments that you recently made saying McCarthy earned the right to be the speaker, and any vote against him damages Republicans and our ability to govern. Those opposing him are putting their selfish motivations over what's best for our nation. My question to you is, has he earned the right to be speaker if he cannot secure your party's full support?
Absolutely. He's got over 90% of the Republicans voting for him. 11 times now that 90% of the Republicans in the conference have voted for him. There's nobody else in the conference that could have gotten 90% of the vote. And so we have a group of about 20 that is effectively functioning as a union. And there's some in that group that are negotiating for things that I believe are honorable. They want rules that help stop the Senate from sending a $1.7 trillion appropriation measure over at the 11th hour and us not having any time to even read the bill before it spends $1.7 trillion of your tax money. So I think that those negotiations about how we make sure that we understand what is in a 4,000-page piece of legislation, those are honorable negotiations, and the rules should have never allowed anything like that to happen. The others who are using the opportunity to stand up and if you will, speak on the floor and then turn around and raise money off of it, that's not an honorable negotiation, and this is much more serious than that.
You've said that you think that McCarthy will be the next Speaker of the House. I guess I'm curious to find out what that strategy should be at this point going forward. Should you just stay in the room and keep voting and hope some of your colleagues literally get so tired that they leave and then it lowers the voting threshold?
No, I mean, either way, we can stay there all night. It's fine with me. I mean, if we need to break and have a conference, that's fine with me too. So I'm open to changing the rules that lead to a resolution. We need to get through this because members of Congress in both parties need to be sworn in, and we need to get to work. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and as you know, we don't have the ability to function until we're sworn in as members of Congress. And so what that group of 20 is doing, it has significant consequences for the operations of the country. And so again, if they're operating honorably, we can accept that. That's part of democracy. But if they're using this opportunity to grandstand and raise money off of that on both sides, then the public needs to take account of those members in the next election.
I guess my question, though, is do you see any progress? Because when we're just looking at the scoreboard, just on the face, it doesn't seem like there's been, it seems like McCarthy's actually going in the wrong direction.
I'm looking at your score right there. McCarthy's got 200 votes, and there are 20 votes against him and 1 voting present. And so he's got, right at 90% of the vote of the Republicans. And so that's more than anybody else in the conference could get. And
right,
so
but that 20 isn't getting whittled down any further. It seems that, today, he had last night and then this morning and this afternoon to try to convince. He has to kind of break that ice, right, of the 20. And it doesn't seem like any progress is being made there. I hear your point that he's getting that 90%, getting the majority, but it doesn't seem like that 20 is increasing or decreasing, I should say.
We certainly hope to see the number on the 200 go up and the 20 go down, and hopefully that'll happen over the next several hours or a couple of days, if it takes a couple of days. But this is a very serious issue. Who we select to be the Speaker of the House is third in line to be the President of the United States. I'm fine if it takes a few days for us to get the right person with the right rules in the chair. The right person is Kevin McCarthy. The right rules actually would require that the House of Representatives have time to read a 4,000-page piece of legislation that spends $1.7 trillion before it can actually be signed into law by the President of the United States. So it's 3 days. Congress is typically in session for 4 days, and if we have to go to 5-day work weeks to make up for this 3 days, that's fine. Now there are things we want to do as Republicans that we're not able to do right now. We're not able to get organized with the committee. We're not able to start the investigations. We're not able to pass things that are good for domestic energy production, and that's the first thing we can do to reduce inflation in this country is to reduce the price of energy, and we've got ideas on that. And so it has hurt our ability to get things done in a timely manner. But if you look at what's happening on the floor now, you see a whole lot more smiles and people shaking hands than you've seen over the last couple of days. And so I feel like we're getting to an agreement, and hopefully we'll see some significant movement.
You said that you would support some rule changes. What rule changes would you support?
Timing on how much time we have to read the bill, especially if it's a Senate bill that comes over that spends money. I'd like to see us have a week to read a 4,000 page piece of legislation that spends $1.7 trillion before you just rubber stamp it the way Pelosi did and send it to the President of the United States. So the things that I want to see are changes that actually set the spending trajectory of the country on a path that is sustainable. We can't sustain $32 trillion in debt, especially with interest rates moving in the way they are. $1 trillion deficit on an annual basis. That's just not doable. It's not fair to the working people of this country or the next generation of this country. And so rules that actually help fix the budget problems that we have in this country, that's a good reason to actually delay the seating of the Speaker, if you will. Now, that's honorable discussions that move the country in the right direction. Now, the ones that are grandstanding on both sides and raising money off of this and talking about bringing popcorn to the floor and watching the show, that's happening on both sides, and that's candidly very disappointing. We're members of Congress. This is the United States House of Representatives, and our job is much more serious than that.
We all heard Congressman Boebert talk about looking at life after Kevin McCarthy. Is there any point where supporters of McCarthy need to turn to perhaps a consensus candidate that could get fuller support so you all could actually get to work? I heard you say you don't think anybody else could get more than 90%. We see Steve Scalise, just saw him in the picture there. We've heard his name bandied about. You think that he might be able to get to 218?
There is no consensus candidate, and the group that has been holding out for weeks, they've said, well, we've got a candidate in hiding, a candidate in waiting, a candidate, and we'll tell you who it is tomorrow. And they've never actually produced a candidate. If they want to go back into conference and present a name instead of Kevin McCarthy, and us have a debate over that person versus Kevin McCarthy as who the Republican nominee should be, that's fine with me, and candidly, I think it would be fine with Kevin. But they don't want to do that because they know Kevin McCarthy is going to overwhelmingly win that debate inside the conference. So our conference rules, just as the other conference rules, or the conference rules of the other party say, that we're going to select our nominee as the party, and we're going to put forward that nominee. Kevin McCarthy has got 90% of the vote. There is nobody else in our conference that can get 90% of the vote. The rules are that those 20 should be supporting the position of the conference. And if you go back into committee and you come out with Kevin McCarthy again, as we would, what's to say that 20 doesn't do the same thing they've done right now and effectively function as a union again? And so 200 members of the House of Representatives and on the Republican side, aren't going to be pushed aside by 20 members who have effectively functioned as a union. That's just not the way life works, and that's not the way our rules work.
Last night, your colleague, Congressman Andy Barr, said that he was concerned about the national security of the country due to the Speaker's fight. What's your biggest concern right now?
Andy Barr is a great member of Congress. He's an honorable member. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, so I have very serious concerns about what's happening in the international arena, whether it be Ukraine or whether it be related to China and their aggressiveness. I'm also very concerned, I can tell you, the southern border. As a dad with a 23-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, when I wake up and I get the privilege to wake up at my house and I step outside and I'm drinking coffee in the morning and being so thankful for being an American, I'm worried about fentanyl and how open the border is. I'm worried about crime. I'm worried about all of those things that are happening in every single American's backyard in this country. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or what color you are. We're losing 100,000 Americans a year to drug overdoses. This has to be stopped. It's coming in across the border. And that's one of the things that I just don't understand why we can't come together and acknowledge that we've got a very serious problem down there that can be fixed and should be fixed.
Is there any part of your conference that you think would reach out across the aisle to Democrats in an effort to try to find a compromise and ultimately elect a speaker that way?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Kevin McCarthy will be elected the Speaker of the House, and I just don't see that happening.
Understood. If he is able to get elected, as you suggest, do you think that McCarthy would have a difficult time effectively running the House and keeping this holdout faction from undermining him?
I think whoever's in that chair. Let me be clear about that. I don't think it matters if it's Kevin McCarthy in that chair or anybody else in that chair. I think that when you've got a 4-seat margin and you've got the other party in control of the White House and the other party in control of the Senate, and you've got a Republican leader in the Senate that is supporting a $1.7 trillion spending spree with the Democrats, I think whoever the Republican Speaker of the House is going to have a very difficult time, because he's not just standing up against the president. He's not just standing up against Democrats in the House. He's not just standing up against Chuck Schumer and Democrats in the Senate. He's got to stand up against the Republicans that are voting for all of these increases in spending that have led to $30+ trillion in debt. I'm telling you, the interest on the national debt is going to have a tremendous impact on every American over the next several years.
What do you think, if you pull out your crystal ball here, Congressman, is ahead in store for us tonight? I mean, are you willing to go all night? Do you think that that's within the realms of possibilities?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, this is, if it takes all night, we'll go all night. If they want to break and have a conference or break and have dinner and come back at 10 p.m. or whatever it takes, I think on our side, we're fine with that.
Congressman Austin Scott of Georgia, we thank you so much for your time and really appreciate your insight.
Hey, thank you.